bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right. So, all right. Good evening, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. How is everybody doing? Today is Tuesday, October 15th, 2024. Again, I'm your host, Jimmy Church. All right. Very excited about the show tonight, and you can support everything that we do around here by getting yourself a Fade to Black t-shirt. I know everybody's got one. Join in. Wear yours. Send us a picture. We'll put it in our Fade to Black gallery of all of you Fadernauts. 2 shirts, 2 ways to get them. The links are below. Everything is autographed. Everything includes shipping. So get yourself a Fade to Black t-shirt today. Get 2. Get 1 of each. Yeah, get 4. 2 for you and 2 for your friend, your significant other, your husband, your wife. You guys can go out in public matching. Right? I'm with stupid. You know what I'm saying. You can do all of that. The links are below. Continuing Fade to Black, another amazing week. Last night, Lyle Blackburn was here. Great show. Talking about mysterious creatures. Tonight, Earl Grey. Yeah, Earl Grey is with us. I'm calling the show The Grey UFO Files, and I think he should call his new book that, by the way. Tomorrow night, Lisa Smart is here, and we're going to be talking about the Final Words Project. It's going to be an amazing show tomorrow night with Lisa Smart, and then Thursday night, the one and only Michael Schratt is back with us. The big subject, one of the big subjects right now in ufology, and that is completely viral. It's been that way for a minute now. Crash retrievals. So we're going to go through Michael's favorite cases that may show evidence of UFO crash retrievals. That's right. So all of that is going down Thursday night. I want to remind everybody, I've got 3 events coming up next month. I'm going to Peru and Bolivia with Brian Forrester. That is November 15th through the 27th. I come back from that, and I am hosting the Conscious Life Expo again this year. This is the biggest conference in the world at the LAX Hilton. That is February 7th through the 10th, 2025. The links are below. Schedule, speakers, tickets, events, all of that. Everything you need. ConsciousLifeExpo.com. The links are below. Then right after that, The Rise of the Guardians, and that is March 29th and 30th. 2025 in Sedona, Arizona. Again, the links for that, tickets, information, everything that you need is right there below. All right, now before I get started, I want to mention to everybody, I got to bring up the Harley. I got an oil leak. I first spotted it over the weekend, took it in to Harley. It's still there. Today, early this morning, and they called me late this afternoon and said you can pick up the bike tomorrow, probably. It looks like it's nothing catastrophic, that it is something to do with the air filter on the air cleaner. Okay. All right. So that relieved a lot of pressure. I'm thinking, man, I've got something crazy wrong, and this is going to be insane. But that's the update there. The other update I want to give before I bring Earl in is this public service announcement. There is a new documentary that is out. It is called The King of UFOs. All right. Don't watch it. No, don't spend your money. Don't do it. You can't get your time back. I very rarely do this. I like UFO documentaries, and And I read the press release on this, and it was sent to me a couple of months ago, and I was really looking forward to it. And I got to tell you, I don't understand why this movie was made. I'm just going to leave it right there. It's about Prince Charles, King Charles, Prince Philip, and Lord Mountbatten. And it'd be nice if it was about them. It's just don't do it. Just avoid it. Just avoid it. I never do this. But when I recommend something, I want people to go and enjoy it. Like right now, I'm in the middle of Eureka, the old TV series. Man, it came out in like the mid 2000s or something. It's my guilty pleasure. Don't judge me. It's a great show, 5 seasons, and I've been binging it for a few weeks now, just trying to squeeze in all 5 seasons in my spare time. But I did manage. Now, this is my recommendations. Cradle Lake. Watch it. Okay? It's an amazing movie. Cradle Lake. It's Craddo. Watch it. It's absolutely amazing. I'm not going to give away anything. All right? All right. Just go and watch it. And another movie that's really good stars Justin Benson, who's been on Fade to Black a couple of times. And I really like Justin. He's a great filmmaker. It's called Things Will Be Different. And it's the overall arching thing. It's a time travel movie. A couple goes through a heist, has the money, and then that's the title of the movie. Things Will Be Different. Go and check that out. It's absolutely amazing. Things will be different. Okay, that's my public service announcement on must watch and not so much watch TV. All right, TV and film. There you go. All right. Tonight, Earl Grey is here. We're going to be talking about his mother's work during the 1950s for Hughes Aircraft as one of Howard Hughes's personal secretaries. We're going to be talking about that and what she revealed. He has, as an investigator for MUFON, he's now a state director of SoCal MUFON. But as an investigator, he investigated over 1,000 cases. So we're going to talk about that and what it means to be an investigator. He is MUFON State Director of Southern California, SoCal. He is a STAR team member, executive member of MUFON's ERT, the Experiencer Resource Group. He has appeared on multiple radio shows, podcasts, TV shows, including Travel Channel's Storming Area 51, Motor Mythbusters, Netflix, the UAP Disclosure Files, the History Channel's Ancient Aliens, and several documentaries from filmmaker Jeremy Norrie. And now the other stuff that is really interesting about Earl, not only is he a good guy and very knowledgeable about these subjects, but he teaches an accredited course in ufology, UFOs and Otherworlds, right here in Los Angeles at Otis College of Art and Design. I almost want to start the conversation right there. I want to welcome to Fade to Black for the first time. I don't know why we've taken so long, Earl, but welcome to the show.
How are you doing there, Jimmy? It's so good to see you.
So good to see you. Last time I saw you, we were eating
chip salsa.
Yeah,
back some beer, I think, at Casa Vega in the Valley, right?
Yeah, in Sherman Oaks. Hey, do you remember? Check this out. Oh, you get the first time guest disclaimer. I don't want to space that. The audience will never let me forget it. Earl, it's just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation as friends. And where the conversation starts, it starts. Where it ends, it ends. But we'll end as friends. But we're already friends. But you know what I'm saying.
We've done this already. No audience. But Paul Heineken sub talk. You know that was really fun, wasn't it?
Okay, Earl, you have to accept the first time guest disclaimer. Do you accept it?
I accept it.
Okay, good. So what I wanted to mention about that was, do you remember we were waiting outside for valet, right? For our cars. and that weird object appeared in the sky behind us over the hill. Remember when we took pictures of it, and we never really, and we thought it might have been somebody with a parachute. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Well, it was crazy.
The phenomena is interactive, and you get like a few people together. It's like the Coronado Hotel event that Yvonne Smith had. I mean, they had a get together for experiencers, and the next thing you know, they're all being abducted at the same time from the same hotel.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. The next day, everybody's like, "Hey, man, how'd you sleep?" I kind of want to start here. Right now, there's a few crazy things happening in real time. We have the Immaculate Constellation conversation that is going on. This big reveal from a whistleblower, and so for Michael Schellenberger and his article, he has since gone on Rogan and a few other shows, and he's been talking about this, and he says he's standing by his story. We have that, and then we have the news with Simon Holland. And he's a filmmaker and an educator, and he says that somebody from Zuckerberg's breakthrough listen has revealed to him that there are two groups that are competing to announce contact, and that we have discovered something out there, and it may be in the form of communication or radio signals or something that because it's coming from breakthrough listen, that I think we can assume that it is some kind of communication and a signal, and that could be as soon as within the next couple of weeks. Those are two huge stories to go in addition to everything else that is going on. So let's back up to Immaculate Constellation. What do you think is going on there?
Well, we have a name for, crash retrieval programs now, don't we? That was kind of what it was about, wasn't it? I haven't been able to keep track of everything, but I think wasn't that a big chunk of that whole thing?
What I find interesting about it is the name. The name is too long for really cool government programs, right? Project Sign, Project Grudge. You know what I mean? Those are very short, simple blue book. But Immaculate, right? It's Constellation. It just doesn't roll off the tongue, and it's a lot to type too as well. You got to use spell check. You got to get through it.
Harder to do a FOIA request on the name, probably, or if you're guessing possible names for programs, you're never going to think of that. So maybe that's something to do with it. Sure.
And the story behind it being the program, it's a special access program, that it was founded in 2017 after the New York Times article, and that the whistleblower has revealed this, and the whistleblower report was leaked. So that describes this whole thing. Do you think that, okay, I would assume that there is a reverse engineering program going on, but do you think it's called Immaculate Constellation, and that it would be revealed by a whistleblower that is still unnamed, and everything else behind it, that it is so super secret that Congress, the Senate, the White House, nobody knows anything about anything? And so there's nothing to really reveal except for the name and an unnamed whistleblower. Does that put us right back on the treadmill of never really knowing anything?
Well, they keep on pulling the football away at that last second, and we're used to that. I mean, it's just like the congressional, the whole Arrow thing last year, and then Fitzpatrick Patrick or Kirkpatrick says there's nothing to see here, folks. And, you know, he said that he didn't hear any personal good testimony. And I happen to know that Robert Solis and David Schindley, I have David's, the document that he gave them that is stunning and detailed about how the missiles were turned off. I mean, there are two different incidences where there was an incursion over a military base by a UFO, and multiple people upstairs are watching this, and the people in the capsule downstairs are hearing all about it over the radio, and they turned off 10 missiles. Robert Solis was there when it happened. He said it wasn't electromagnetic pulse, and because the radio, the computer systems, the air pumps, everything was still online. It targeted the missiles themselves. And it wasn't like it was some little glitch where it was easy to get them back online. It ruined the missiles. From what I heard, they had to pull them out of the silos, rewire them. It was an intentional, I believe they're giving us a message that they don't like our nuclear weapons. I take that. I think and I hope that that's a good sign that we're sort of like the proverbial monkeys in the dynamite shack playing with matches, and they're telling us, good luck. We can turn them off when we want to, and these are two different incidents that happened. And
you bring up a good point.
Kirkpatrick said that he had no good testimony, that there was no personal testimony. We know,
but you bring up a good point, Earl. We know Robert Salas. We know his face. He's out there in public. And so when a whistleblower wants to go down the whistleblower route, you are now protected. So we need the face and the name and that whistleblower to come forward. Otherwise, it's nothing. It's an intangible. It doesn't count.
No,
and right. Michael Schellenberger can say all day long, I stand by my source. Well, in this case, if it's a whistleblower and there's documentation backing this up, then that whistleblower is protected. Come forward. The reason why David Grush is so legit, David Grush said some amazing things for sure, but he did it. He's, under testimony, and he's live on TV in front of Congress. There's a lot of cred that you establish by doing that as a whistleblower. So David Grush is, in my eyes, is he 100% credible? Well, he put himself out there. You can't hide behind a protected source. And in this case with Schellenberger, I don't think that applies here. You're not hiding a source. If the source is a whistleblower and is an official whistleblower, name, right? That's it. Let's move forward with this so we can, as a community, do our own due diligence, right?
I guess we're going to have to see. We're going to have to wait and see what happens with it. I don't know. I've been through so many of these now that I tend to just kind of tamp down my I'm a part of the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, and I hope for disclosure and I push for disclosure, but I don't have all that much confidence in the government coming forward with this stuff. I think that we are disclosure. I think that what we're doing right now technically is for the people that want to know, that have a need to know that this is disclosure which we're doing right now. It'd be nice if there was government confirmation. I mean, I'm friends with Steve Bassett too, and I know that he and Danny Sheehan and all those guys are just trying to pry this out of the hands of the military-industrial complex and get it out to the public. I don't think we're going to get big D disclosure. I don't think they're going to want to talk about abductions and visitations, and they're probably not even going to want to address missiles being turned off, is my guess. That doesn't put a whole lot of confidence in the military. But I think we're going to get something. I really hope. I mean, it's time. It is time. And it does seem like things are aligning that way. Elizondo's book that came out, I thought it was a wonderful book. I'm all for him. I think he's a brave man. He did come to MUFON to get a box of implants. Actually, my assistant state director was working at headquarters at that time, and she's a very good judge of character. She said that she felt that Elizondo was on the square and just a very good and somebody that she trusted. And she doesn't trust everybody. So that's happening. What's going on with with Steve Bassett and Danny Sheehan and the Paradigm Institute and all this stuff. There's just a lot of stuff going on. And then there's word that possibly there is going to be some official, that somebody is going to say something officially. And I think it's about time.
You said Elizondo went to MUFON headquarters and got a box of implants that were removed.
Yes, indeed. And I think I can say that.
Well, you already did.
Yes.
Is that like checking out a library book? Do you have to return it by a certain date?
I don't know.
How many implants? How many implants were there, and who did they come from?
And I don't have an exact number. I'd have to ask Linda, but she was there. And we're talking some years back. This was some years ago.
Did he return them?
I don't think so. I think they were given to him because they were doing.
Oh, they were given to him.
That's what I believe.
Wow.
It was To the Stars thing was going on at the time, and they it seemed like they had funding. They had so that's kind of what happened with that. But I think that there's a lot of stuff going on right now. It looks really, really good to me as far as us getting some kind of disclosure. We're going to talk about my mom. She felt it was important that I knew, but we'll talk about it. I mean, she doubled down a few times during her life and said that they will never tell the public, never, ever tell the public. So I wonder if this changed. There sure is a lot of interest. It's okay, bipartisan interest.
We'll get to your mom in a second. I wanted to get your comments and thoughts on Simon Holland. And now Simon, he's a noted guy. We all know his face. He's out there doing sciencey stuff for just about everybody, including NASA. And he does really good work. And he said that somebody from Zuckerberg's Breakthrough Listen, which Avi Loeb is tied in with, right? Breakthrough Listen, which is a few billionaires are invested into this and in the search for extraterrestrial communications. So one of the people from Breakthrough Listen contacted Simon and told Simon that there were two competing groups that have confirmation of extraterrestrial life and contact, and that are competing with each other to be the first to announce it to the public. And this came out about 3 or 4 days ago. And that they told Simon it could be as soon as 2 weeks. That's a pretty big announcement. What do you make of that? And it doesn't surprise me. I think what surprises me about it is that it's private. It's not the government that has this information, and it's in private hands. And even then, now it's about money, it's about funding, it's about trying to find a way to capitalize on this, I'm sure. And suddenly these private groups are infighting for the announcement. So what does this surprise you? And do you think that we could have something that imminent in a couple of weeks?
I do. I mean, it seems like things are aligning that way to me. There's been so much talk about this. It's been, I think that Lou Elizondo, again, I'll go back to Imminent. He talks about how if, that secrets are like if you leave fruit and vegetables in your refrigerator and you let them go bad, it's going to stink. And eventually you're going to have to clean out that whole fridge. And maybe this is what's going on. I mean, there's so much public interest in extraterrestrial life and in this phenomenon, whatever this phenomenon is, where it's coming from, whether it's interdimensional, other planets, whatever the source is, it seems like it's not like this fringe subject anymore. It's everywhere. And I think that, when the old attitude was we're never going to tell the public, and I think that they were afraid of what would happen, War of the Worlds, Orson Welles radio broadcast, and people are going crazy and barricading themselves in and stuff. Well, that's 1930s. And now this is a long, long time after that. I think that if there's any time in human history where people are ready for this news, it's now. And it's about time. It's about time. I've known about this since I was 5 years old, and it didn't turn me into some paranoid, fearful person. I live a normal life. I do normal stuff like you do, music and what have you. It wasn't this devastating, fear-filled thing for me, and I don't think that it will be that for the public either. I think that it's the time, and I think people are ready. And maybe it will bring people together, and they won't be at each other's throats so much. You turn on the news, it's like, forget it. I turn it off. I can't even listen anymore. It's demonizing everybody.
It's a situation that I find myself in, and you're involved in it too, where the community itself seems to be fighting amongst each other more than ever before. And I thought that it got heated in 2017 and 2018. It's just gotten worse where
it's terrible. Demonizing everybody else. Well, they vote differently or think differently. And I'm sick of it. I'll be glad 3 weeks from now, however it turns out,
Well, I don't talk about that stuff on the show. But,
I don't either. I don't let it on my social media. And I would have a revolt in my MUFON team because we're equally divided. Half of us are voting for one person and half the other.
Well, okay. Let's not. Let's not. We're not going to talk about it. But anyway,
no.
If we back up into the 90s, and you look at the MJ-12 documents or all the other big things that were happening back then, like Bob Lazar or Roswell was, bubbling to the surface, and the alien autopsy video, all of these things were happening at the same time. There was lots of stuff, Bill Cooper, and it was okay to believe or not believe or agree or disagree with these subjects. You weren't banished from the room and you weren't called names. We were all in this together, and that's it. It was just part of the discussion. Today, it's simply not that kind of party. Mm-hmm. Everything has to be, you have to be like us or you are them. It's like weird. It's like, man, I don't get it. I don't get it.
Well, maybe this can bring us together. You remember Ronald Reagan when he talked to, the United Nations, and he said that if there was a threat from outer space, and I don't think it has to be a threat, if there's just an intelligence from outer space, just that this will be the moment, the greatest news, the most amazing news that we have ever heard, and ever. I mean, there's nothing else. It's it's the trifecta of questions. Is there a God? What happens when I die? And are we all alone in the universe? I think that possibly this is the thing that can get us to make peace with each other, and maybe humans will act better. I mean, if we know somebody's out there and we're being observed, we're going to be less likely to threaten each other, countries or dogma or whatever it may be that gets between us. I think that may be the icebreaker. And I'll tell you, we need that right now. We need it so badly.
Yeah,
so
for
I
sure. Yeah, for
I
sure.
hope.
Okay, so what did your mom tell you? Let's go. Let's start with your mom. What did your mom tell you?
Right to the quick here. Well, it's a long story. That's my whole life. That's why I'm here right now. Well, it was no news. We all knew that my mom worked for Hughes Aircraft and that she was one of Howard Hughes's secretaries. She had an office right next to Howard Hughes's office. It was the aircraft company, not the movie studio or the other facilities he had. That wasn't the big news, and she would brag about it, and she even had a fudge recipe. He made her, offer C's Candy, so much money for their secret recipe because he didn't trust anything unless his people prepared that for him. That recipe went all over the country. I know people in the Midwest that have that. But when I it seemed like I was born with this propensity. I loved outer space, and I somehow internally knew that we weren't alone. My earliest memories are, drawing a little control board and putting it on the wall, and I'm pretending like I'm going to Jupiter. I was obsessed as a little kid, and one of my earliest memories is I'd go out in the backyard, Venice, California, climb up the swing set. We had monkey bars, and I would get up there and wave and sing at the sky. And my mom, she opened up the kitchen window. "Who are you waving and singing to, Earl?" And I didn't even have to think about it. And I remember this. I said, "The space people, Mom. I'm waving and singing to the space people." And this was a little ritual that I had. I did it, quite a bit, apparently. It was, I guess, my little activity, waving and singing to the space people. Now I'd started kindergarten. I was 5 years old. It was 1963. Yes, I'm dating myself. I'm older than you, Jimmy. And happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you, man.
But I sat down for my probably my Frosted Flakes. We ate sugary stuff back then. And my mom sat across from me. And I'll never forget because she spoke to me like I was another adult. There was no baby talk. She started talking. I think that this was weighing on her shoulders. She couldn't talk about it, but she did. She said, "Son, well, everybody knows about my old job and working for Hughes Aircraft, but there's something very strange about my job that nobody knows about." She said, "They took me out to the middle of nowhere once, son. They didn't tell me where I was going. It was just me and a couple of security people." She said it was the Great American Desert. She didn't say which one. She just said the Great American Desert. She said that they showed her this shack, a concrete shack, a bunker, I presume. And my mom was confused. They didn't give her any preamble as to what to expect. Maybe they were testing her to see how she would react in extraordinary circumstances. But she said that they opened this thing up, and she wondered if they're going to show her a tractor or tools or something, what could be in there. And there was one thing, and it was an elevator. She got into the elevator, and she said that the doors of the elevator closed, and she figured it was going down a floor or two. But she said it kept going. And she said that it went faster as it went along, and she started getting scared. The words she used, she said, "I felt butterflies in my stomach." Vertigo. I mean, that's kind of moving at a clip. She said when the doors finally opened up, there was a little city under the desert. She said they would get around in golf carts, And there were many scientists working on top secret projects down there. She said that they had, like one commissary was apparently done up sort of like a cafe, and it even had little umbrellas over the table. And she laughed and she said, I thought that was funny that you don't need an umbrella in a cave, but there they were. Movie theater. And she said that they even had somebody that could do my hair for me, which is, she said it was a barber shop, but the barber could do my hair for me. And so obviously it wasn't just a one-time trip. If she's getting her hair done under the desert, I mean, that's not something that you're going to do if they take you out one day to this strange secret facility. But she said that I worked there with a lot of important people, son, and I want you to know something. She said, you sing and wave and you talk about the space people. I want you to know that there are space people, that we know we aren't alone. Said people don't know this, but we know there is intelligent life in the universe. And you're going to hear about UFOs. You're going to hear about this question in your life. And I just want you to know that it's a reality, that we aren't alone, that there are space people. And that was it. She packed me up and dropped me off at Wall Grove Elementary School in Venice, California. And I went on, and as far as I knew, maybe all the kids' parents worked in little cities under the desert. I didn't know. That sort of thing certainly wasn't on television. I think maybe in the late 1970s or something, we heard about underground facilities and stuff. But back then, you just didn't hear about that. And that was when I first heard about this. That was sort of my genesis moment.
You said Walgrove Elementary.
Mm-hmm.
When I lived in Venice, my daughter went to Coeur d'Alene.
Oh, I don't know where.
Coeur d'Alene is on the corner of Lincoln and Washington. Yeah,
I know where that is.
Yeah,
we lived on Lake Street.
Okay,
the house. I noticed they tore it down. But this went on, though. I mean, I kept bringing it up to my mom.
Well, that's my next question, though. She didn't just let it go, and I'm sure you didn't either.
She
right?
tried to. She tried, but I kept bringing it up, and it made her very uncomfortable because I was getting older. But we didn't talk about it anymore. I overheard a couple of conversations that she had. Apparently, her sister knew what my mom did because she brought the Look magazine out with the Betty and Barney Hill story in it. And we heard this arguing going on in the kitchen. Now we're living in Thousand Oaks, California. I was about 8 years old. And so my cousins and I were trying to listen in. And my aunt was just beside herself. She said, this can't be true. What do you think about this crazy story? This sounds like bad science fiction. And my mom is telling her, from what I know, this actually could have happened, Mary. This could have actually happened. And I remember, and this was like maybe the first time I ever felt the willies. I mean, it was a very, poignant moment for me. My aunt said, well, they stuck a needle in her navel. And I didn't know what a navel was. I had to ask my older cousin. He said, belly button. Shut up. We were sneaking there, listening surreptitiously. And my mom said, well, regardless of what, from what I know, I think this may have actually happened. It seems to align with what I know. And I remember standing there, and it sort of felt like the whole universe was kind of caving in on me. I mean, before that, I thought of, extraterrestrial life as like the Great Gazoo from the Flintstones, or my favorite Martian, or something like that. I didn't realize that there was kind of interaction, and maybe interaction with people where they didn't really want that interaction. That's pretty getting pretty close and personal, sticking a needle and doing more or less an amniocentesis before we knew what an amniocentesis was.
Did you ever find out? Did she ever disclose where this secret location was? Was it
No.
out here where I am in Palmdale? Was it like out here, Edwards Air Force Base Skunk Works, Mojave?
You tell me. There, I talked with Richard Souder about this a couple times. He's written a few books on the subject, and I know that Northrop has the Anthill. I won't mention the location, but apparently has 10 levels to it. I've had other people from DOD and other 3-letter organizations kind of confirm that. Tejon Ranch, there's supposedly one in White Sands that was a computer complex. Don't come after me, anybody. I haven't signed anything, but that's the rumor. From what I hear, that we have quite a few of these, but we didn't know about them back then when I was a kid. But it gets worse. Okay, with my poor mom. I'll show you a picture, by the way, for those of you that are watching this on video. That's like a picture of my mom.
Oh,
right
very
around
cool.
that time. Betty
Very cool.
Grace Maiden was her maiden name, and that was her name when she was working in the facility till she married my dad around what was it, 57 or something, I guess. And then it was Betty Grace Anderson. She said that Werner von Braun called her Betty Grace. He made it like one word, and he would say it together. And my mom spoke very highly of Werner. He'd come on The Wonderful World of Disney, and my mom would get all, I think she liked him. And she'd go, "That's my friend Werner. He's very, very smart and very sweet man." I got a little older, and it's like, well, he was a Nazi, wasn't he?
Yeah,
Two
right,
bombs
right.
and stuff,
It's so what's weird about him for me is that because growing up like you and I did in the space race, and we all had our favorite astronaut and things, and in the background you always read about him and what he meant to our space program. And then you grow up and you find out about who he really was and what was going on there, and it's just weird. I'm not really even comfortable saying his name now.
I know.
It's really changed for me. So you said it started. It even gets stranger with your mom.
Yeah. I kind of kept everything on the down low. I listened. I kept my ears open, but my mom definitely got uncomfortable when I brought up the subject, so I simply wouldn't. But in 4th grade in Thousand Oaks, Acacia Grammar School, I was 10 years old, and we would do a show and tell on Fridays. And most of the other kids, there were a lot of rocket scientists in town. We had Rocketdyne and Aerojet and all, all those companies were working out of here. Northrop had a facility in Newbury Park. So all these kids are coming up and they're talking, "Oh, my father is working on the retro rockets for the Saturn V or the lunar module, and this and that." And I go up there and I'm talking about my dad's landscape contractor business, and they're kind of yawning and rolling their eyes. And something came over me. Let me tell you about my mom, though. And when I told you that same story, pretty much, I told this class. Now, we had the teacher, and there was a teacher assistant that was in there, and I think one of the teachers from the class next door happened to be in the room at the time. So there were 3 adults and about 30 kids, and they're listening to Earl talking about an underground base and his mother working there with German rocket scientists, and that UFOs are real and that we're not alone in the universe. Well, the other kids would tease me, they would do the little antenna behind my head, like My Favorite Martian was kind of a fun show we watched way back in the, Stone Age back then. They would kind of tease me, or Spacey Earl, UFOs, tell us about flying saucers. So my teacher scheduled a parent-teacher conference with my mom, and I didn't think anything of it. They have conferences. So I'm out there in the playground playing, and my mom's meeting with my teacher. And, climbing up monkey bars, I was probably waving and singing to the space people. I still do that. But technically, But anyway, my mom comes out from that meeting, and she's very quiet. She's not talking to me. And we walk to the Pontiac station wagons parked out there out front, and we get in. My mom opened up the door, and she lets me in the passenger seat, and she said, "Son, I'm not angry at you. You did tell your class the truth." And she closes the door, and she gets into the driver's seat, and she hadn't started the car up yet. She said, "Son, I'm very sorry, but I had to tell your teacher that you have a very good imagination." She said, "People don't know about little cities under the desert, and they certainly don't know about UFOs or intelligent life in the universe." Now she starts the car up, and we start moving. And then I'll never forget, she looks at me and she goes, "My God, how did you remember that? You were just a baby."
Mm.
And she said, "Earl, I wasn't supposed to tell you that. I've signed things. I'm not supposed to tell anybody." She said, "You can't ever, ever, ever talk about that again." And she said, "I could get in trouble." And then she stops for a second, and she said, "I could go to prison if you ever talk about it again." And we drive home, and I don't remember the rest of the day, but I sure remember that conversation. And anyway,
Yeah, that'll silence a kid pretty quickly. So there were other things that were happening around that time where not only Betty and Barney Hill, but there was a lot happening when it came to the subject of UFOs. And you had what Donald Kehoe was doing and NICAP, but the media was okay covering it too as well. There were a lot of sightings, there were a lot of things. And you also had the space race happening at the same time. It was a pretty exciting time to grow up because all of this was part of our reality, wasn't it? Same for you.
Yeah. I mean, I had all the space toys. That was, I had I got the guy here. Hold on. My daughter found this Major Matt Mason. That was like the big toy, I mean, I had the G.I. Joes, but he had a space station, rocket ships, and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I was obsessed. I mean, I forced my parents to take me to see 2001: A Space Odyssey when it came out. Same year that I went and gave my lecture. And lo and behold, that film was about that subject. It was about, they unearth or unmoon the monolith, and it sends, the sun hits it, and it sent a radio signal to a Stargate that was orbiting Jupiter. It was a burglar alarm that was put there, back when we were still swinging in the trees, I guess. And maybe we set off the burglar alarm, by the way, when we set off the first atomic bomb. It's kind of a strange coincidence that the phenomena seem to have ramped up after that. That's when we start, the Kenneth Arnold sighting, same year, and all that stuff kind of, or a couple of years after that. Sorry, that's 47. But I mean, all that stuff ramped up after we dropped the bomb. And maybe that was the signal that, was sort of hinted at in 2001. I still believe probably Arthur C. Clarke knew. I think he knew.
Well,
now, Paul Hynek has a letter from Clarke to his dad, where Clarke said, "I believe that your work, Dr. Hynek, is valid, and I think there's something to this UFO thing. But if I ever talk about it in public, I'll never get invited to another moonshot again. So I can't ever talk about it publicly." And Paul,
he wrote about it though. He wrote about it enough. Well,
but he debunked the UFO phenomena, though. He was a debunker until pretty much he died.
Who?
Like
Arthur
Carl
C.
Sagan.
Clarke?
Mm-hmm.
Carl Sagan. That's different.
Clarke too, though.
Okay, all right.
He said that UFOs were that there was nothing to it. He said that in interviews and some of his nonfiction books. So that was official stance. But he wanted to go see the Apollo shots, you know.
So things have changed and things have stayed the same. So
Yes.
if we go back to Betty and Barney Hill, and through like Whitley Strieber, like 88, 90, right in there, where abductions were a pretty consistent thing.
Yeah.
And would hit the media, and it was a story that was covered. That seems to that style of abduction seems to have gone away. I'm not saying it still doesn't occur, and is, yes, I get that, but you know what I'm referring to. But the part that has stayed consistent is sightings and what is going on in the sky. That is very interesting to me, how the abduction phenomenon, just when you thought cattle mutilations were over with, a couple of years ago, we had a rash of mutilations that happened in Texas. And that was pretty extraordinary to have that suddenly come back when we hadn't heard about it for a long time. Not to say that it
still
doesn't.
Abductions going on. I mean, I get abduction cases all the time. It hasn't stopped.
It's
I would
the
say that
style.
maybe cooled down a little bit. People
Yeah,
get
I mean,
downloads now. Yeah, it's not. It's a little. It's changed a little bit, and it's more like visits. People get visits. You know,
which is what I want to talk about. So the way that MUFON supports this, how many people reach out to MUFON in a month going, you know, I need to get in touch with an experiencer group, right? I mean, how much of that happens?
Quite a few. We keep very busy. You know, there's been a little slowdown recently, but you know, I mean, we have like upwards of 80 people working for the experiencer resource team, and I'm constantly giving cases out to my people. I've got 4 ERT members on my, you know, local team here. Before I was taking them all myself, and I didn't have time to do anything else. It was taking up all of my time. So I really looked for those who had a desire to do this, and you have to have compassion. You have to have an open mind. You have to have scientific knowledge. But you also, it's different than just doing a nuts and bolts UFO report and investigation. There's that personal and the psychological thing. All these people have PTSD. I mean, we can talk about it later if you want, but I mean, I've had a contact experience, and it scared the hell out of me. I wasn't expecting it, and I kind of asked for it, I guess. And now I look at my life, and you know, the waving at the space people and all that stuff. There's weird things that happened along my life. I think that they knew about me probably. My mom was pregnant with me when she was working in this facility. She told me that. You know, I kept badgering her, you know, tell me more. And I was maybe 21 years old. And at that point, she was working for the military industrial complex again. She was working as a corporate headhunter for, you know, pretty much the litany of companies that David Grush mentioned, you know, just Lockheed, Northrop, Boeing, you name it. Those were my mom's clients. And they would run scientists past her, and she would okay people, and they'd be working. The Rockwell Science Center, she kind of single-handedly down to broom pushers. You know, I know that because she got my best friend in high school the job there pushing a broom. You know, and that was my mom. She was much happier when she was working, by the way. She was miserable being a housewife.
Yeah, for sure.
Really,
I mean,
she loved working in that.
Now,
kept her security clearances. She bragged about it till the day she died.
You and your wife had 2 contact experiences? Tell us about the first one.
Well, wow. You want me to go and talk about that? Well, let me tell you more thing about my mom before I go into that. We've got 2 hours here.
Well, we've got 1.
My mom, we have 1 hour. Yeah, 1 hour.
1 hour.
Yeah,
1 hour.
One. But 1977, my mom kept getting cancers. And I've heard many, many reports that the people that worked in these early facilities, they got cancers. They were irradiated somehow, whether that's because they were working out where, downwind of nuclear tests, or whether they had a nuclear pile that they were running these facilities off of. I kind of figure it's probably the latter, because they're obviously off the grid. You're not pulling from, General Electric to run your underground city. She went to her oncologist, Santa Monica, 77, and she got a clear screening. She was in a good mood, and I said, there's this new movie called Star Wars. Let's go. And we went to see Star Wars. And I think that, again, the stars aligned for me. The film ended, the curtains closed, and my mom started talking again. And she said, son, you have no idea how close to the truth Star Wars is. She said, it's not far-fetched at all. The different craft, the different beings, all that. It's really like that out there. She said, but son, they're never going to tell the public. They will never, ever in a million years tell people. And at that point, I was older, I was cocky, and I said, well, why the hell not, Mom? That's a very, very important piece of information. Why wouldn't they tell the public? And shot up, the War of the Worlds radio broadcast. And it sounded like she repeated what they told her to repeat if asked that question. She mentioned it could harm world religions, it could ruin financial systems, and I wasn't buying it. But that was probably the biggest bit of disclosure my mom gave me since I was 5 years old. Except at that point, I was old enough to really mull on it. And again, my thoughts really, really started revolving around this. I wasn't even 20 years old yet, but I was getting there. It's 1977. I was 19 when she died, and I tried to get my mom to sue the government, by the way, because she died of cancer. It was her 6th bout with it. None of them were metastases. They were all individual cancers that popped up, like she had been irradiated. And I wanted her to go public. I wanted her to be the first whistleblower. I wanted her to get a good lawyer and be like Karen Silkwood, go after the government for what they had done to her. And she wouldn't hear of it. It was like a week before she passed. She said, son, I would never, ever sue my government. I love my country. I knew there were risks in what I was doing, and I would do it all over again. I'm a patriot. And a week later, my mom was gone. And that led me to, I knew that I had to put my hand to the plow myself, that nobody was there that could tell me anymore. I wasn't going to be given the golden ticket, I had to uncover the truth myself. And that led me to MUFON. So now we can talk about the experience, because that is the little segue. Because I was working with MUFON when it happened. I was working with MUFON.
Let's, you know what? Let's take our break right now. And then when we come back, we'll set up for the first of your 2 contact experiences. Right there at the beginning of MUFON. But... Right. We'll do all of that when we come back. Our guest tonight, Earl Grey. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get your alerts and access to over 2,000 videos. Click that subscribe button right now. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and get the Fade to Black official podcast. 2,000 episodes, all of them commercial free for just $2 a month. Watch Into the Vortex on Gaia TV. It's Fade to Black for the screen. Simple to do. Go to Gaia.com, search Jimmy Church, or click on the link below. Follow Fade to Black on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Get all of the show updates every single day. It's now called X, but who cares? How you doing? Jimmy Church here. Special announcement. Get your Fade to Black t-shirts. That's right. Help support the show. Help support everything that we do over here. We've got 2 t-shirts. We've got 2 ways to get them. Get your Fade to Black t-shirt today. Go Beckley Teppy. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and become a Fadernaut. Get a membership. That's right. Everything is commercial free. You have access to downloads, and you get to call yourself a Fadernaut. River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right. Welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Earl Grey is with us. He's the director of SoCal MUFON. And right after he joined MUFON, he had a couple of contact experiences with his wife. And that's where we left off. So, yeah, take us through the first contact experience. We're going to go through both.
Well, I'd been a field investigator at that point for about maybe 6 months. I have the exact date of when this happened because I know what cases I was working on. I was working for our mutual friend, Jeff Krause, who was then the state director of Southern California. He was my first mentor in this. Wonderful, amazing mentor, too. I think he's more knowledgeable about, UFOs, physical craft, than anybody. He was the man. Is the man.
Was this before Steve Murillo?
This was after Steve. After Steve.
This was after Steve. This is after Steve. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. He was state director when I joined MUFON. He was wonderfully helpful to me. And he saw that I had a gift for these cases, because we go on the precepts of Hynek, really, in Valet. We use the Valet, Jacques Valet's classification system. We use Hynek's CE1 to close encounters 1, 2, 3, and of course now there's 4. Right? That's where the ERT comes in, is the face-to-face stuff. But I was well versed in the nuts and bolts aspect of this of phenomenology, but I really didn't know what to think about the experience or phenomena. Now, I believe I had a case at that point, and the guy was very convincing. I believe, in fact, the first case I closed as an unknown, as an actual true event, likely event, was an abduction case. But I had never seen a UFO in my life. I had never had a face-to-face contact experience. But on a whim, now I had read a lot of books. I had read Bud Hopkins. I'd read John Mack. God bless Dr. Mack. Very aligned with that man now in my life. Feel like I'd probably be close friends with him, if he were still here. But I had no experience with it. And MUFON were very, our creed, our mission statement is a scientific study of UFOs for the benefit of humanity. And the science is very important. You don't want to mistake, a drone for a UFO. I mean, this is one of the things I found out, really quickly is that there's a lot of stuff in the sky that you can mistake for a UFO. To the chagrin of a lot of people, and I try to be so sweet to people when I, if they ask me, what is it that I saw, and I do know, it was a SpaceX launch, or that, the little UFO that you saw flying over your daughter's graduation was actually a drone with a flash mode on, and they were videoing your daughter's graduation. That's what you saw. And a lot of the cases were like that, and still are. They still are. UFOs, there are UFOs. They're more common than people probably think, but everything that looks unusual in the sky is not a UFO. And that MUFON, if I go and I classify something as a UFO and it's not, I'll hear about it, because people check up on us. I know one guy that does a podcast where he tries to debunk UFO reports, and hasn't been able to debunk any of mine, by the way. I'm sure he's tried. I think I've got like 100 cases out of the a little over 1,000 that I have personally investigated that I will stand with and say that this happened, and this is anomalous, and this is not us. Or if it is us, we've learned how to evade the effects of gravity. So anyway, I kind of went into that. I was 6 months in, and I definitely had my feet wet at that point. And I decided to try a little experiment. I heard about the CE5 movement, probably, I heard about Steve Greer and all that stuff. I wasn't willing to pay, somebody to do that for me. So I knew how to meditate. I'd done that in high school. I'd done it later on too. I was pretty good at it. So I remembered my mantra. I had a focal point, and every night for a few weeks, a couple of weeks, I would do a meditation, and I would intentionally send out the message, ETs, I want to meet you. And nothing happened after a week. And I kind of added to it. You can abduct me if you want. Come take my DNA if that's the price of a ticket. That's how much I want to know that this really happens. I didn't expect it would work. It was really, it was a lark that I was on. But, it was sort of like, what the heck, why not? Let's try it. And I was serious about it. One night, we were living in Burbank. It was not a rural area. We lived across from the Chandler bike path, if you know that area. Kind of an older house. It looked like a big yellow barn. Now everybody's going to know where it was, but I'm not going to give the address. We don't live there anymore anyway, but somebody does. But anyhow, I went upstairs to our little loft bedroom. It was, big house down below, and then there was just a bedroom and a little bathroom upstairs. My wife was already asleep, and I was putting a bunch of pillows behind my back. I had a bad back. I still have a bad back, terrible back. So I'm kind of getting ready to snooze, and this weird thing starts happening. Our room started getting brighter and brighter, and there was no lights on. It was very dark. We had the Venetian blinds shut. There was no light coming from any external source, and it was this strange blue light. It was as though the air itself was illuminated somehow. Another strange thing was that we had a cricket problem in our rafters. You would always have some crickets chirping up there. It was a thing. Well, no crickets. External sounds got quieter and quieter until you couldn't hear anything outside. It was like a studio quiet room, or like if you put on headphones without them plugged into anything. It was kind of like that effect. It was quietude. So I felt very comfortable. I mean, it was almost a narcoticizing feeling. And I will say, I did not smoke anything or drink. I may have had a beer with dinner, hours before. I was in my right mind. I don't hallucinate. I don't have mental breaks or anything like that. No psychological problems in my history. But I felt very, very like the best word I can put is just it calmed me. Just very, very calm. I felt very happy in my skin. And I'm lying there, and I'm, and obviously they were already running the whole show, because normally I would be going, how the hell is the room lighting up? There's no source. You have to have a source, and the photons come out, and the process. But that wasn't happening. But I'm just sort of semi-recumbent on the pillows. We had a television in front of the bed, and in front of the television, I noticed another point of light that got brighter, and it had shape to it. And it was the sepia color moving in a counterclockwise motion that looked like a little whirlpool. Since it happened, I think sort of like almost like a little whirlpool galaxy, but not. It was more solid than that, though. You couldn't see, dark areas behind it. It was just this 7 foot across area of parchment yellow color something. And it was spinning around. And I noticed at this point that I could not move. I couldn't move my feet. I couldn't move my arms, couldn't move my fingers. I couldn't speak. And now I worked as a nurse for many, 40 years of my life taking care of quadriplegics. The last thing I would want to be is paralyzed. But there I am, I'm paralyzed. This thing opened up from the center out. Almost like if you turned an old school TV off, it would go to the little point, Well, this was like that in reverse. It started from a little point and it opened up. And you could just see space. I couldn't see, like, it was bright white space, very abstract. And I'm scared, but there's nothing I could do about it at this point. I couldn't yell. I couldn't move. In the distance, I could see these 4 diminutive, started out as just like black dots, and they got closer. They were coming from distance. It wasn't like there was a spaceship parked next to our house or anything. I mean, I don't know where they were doing this. I'm guessing that it was like an interdimensional portal of some kind, or some kind of a Einstein-Rosen bridge that they opened up. Your guess is as good as mine. But these figures approached, and they moved, and they came through this opening in space in front of the bed. And at this point, I'm like, I'm very, very agitated. It was not in a good place. The peacefulness is gone. It was the little 4-foot entities that we see with the black eyes. I mean, we see them, silly movies like Paul, actually a pretty fun movie, but that's what they looked like. They didn't look like they had really evolved that way, because there wasn't any really surface features to their face. It looked very smooth, the skin, almost like an infant look to their faces. And the eyes you can't look away from. Once you look in their eyes, it's like staring into the abyss. The abyss stares back. And that was what it was like. It was this almost like this communion thing that was happening between our eyes. And I couldn't get away from it.
Your wife is experiencing the same thing. Oh, she was out.
Well,
okay.
we'll get to that.
No,
we'll get to that. She didn't experience any of that. Okay. The first night.
Okay. So no, let's stay here. Okay. So now the beings are in front of you. You're staring into the abyss.
They worked like a surgical team. Now, I was trying to communicate to them with my mind. I'd read enough literature that I knew that was how they communicated. I didn't expect them to start talking, and their mouths didn't look like they could speak anyway. It was like a slit. But there was no communication coming back from them. One other thing that I failed to mention was that there was another figure that had never left this hole in space. It was like he was standing guard or something, and he was black with a light that was coming from behind him. You couldn't really see any features. I have no idea what his job was, but if he was supposed to be communicating with me, he was not doing a good job of it. There was nothing. So I was scared. They took blood from me, and it felt like they were taking life force from me as well. They'd used these tubes that looked almost like the air tubes that you would see the Apollo astronaut spacesuits had. And there were two that were connected to my upper chest, and there were two that were connected to my lower extremities, I think. I couldn't really see down there, but I felt it. It wasn't like I was numbed or anything. I could feel this. At this point, I'm scared. I thought that I didn't get a calming message from them. They didn't say anything to me, and I wondered if they were just going to exsanguinate me, like I was going to be one of those cows that they find, Linda Moulton Howe, does shows about. I was horrified. I was scared for my life. I was praying. Now I hear people say, well, these are demons. Well, I was rebuking them in the name of Jesus. Okay. I have a Christian background, and I am a Christian. That was not working. Okay. That they had a job to do, and they did it. The tubes attached or detached from me, they seemed to pull back into that hole that opened up. And the beings left just like they came in. They didn't turn around. They didn't walk around. It was like they stood stationary while they were doing this, and everybody had a job. They pulled back, and they kept staring at me the whole time, like somebody was pulling them back on a rug, that they just drew away. They drew into the distance again. You couldn't see them. It was just light coming from this thing. And we had this hole closed up. And again, it was that little sepia round disc thing that looked like a galaxy almost. That faded away, and it was just the blue glow. My wife, at this point, I could hear her, I could hear her breathing. She was asleep, she probably wishes she slept that well every night, because she tends to have insomnia sometimes. When I could finally move, and what I could finally move first were my fingers. I could move my extremities. And the first thing I did was I started screaming and shaking Lisa, my wife. I was shaking her and shaking her. And she woke up, and she was not happy with me. Her whole, what she had to say was, oh my God, you've joined this crazy UFO group, and now you're saying aliens are coming into our room. Is this what I have to expect in the future? She was very, very angry about it. I rolled over. I didn't say anything else. I felt confused. I felt scared. I felt drained. Physically, the next day, I felt like I'd been sick or something, and maybe was starting to get better from being sick. And strangely, we did not talk about it. It was almost like we had come to some agreement that this wasn't going to come up. She wasn't teasing me about the night before. It was as though it had not happened. It did not come up. Next 2 days, it didn't come up. But 2 days later, and it was that night, my wife is shaking me awake. And this time the room again is filled with this blue light, this glow, like this bioluminescence. What it reminds me of, if you've ever seen a ship wake at night and how it glows compared to the rest of the ocean, that was what it looked like, blue and lit up. And she remembers that. Thank God. She does remember this. She's shaking me, and she's agitated and angry, and she starts pacing back and forth next to the bed. And I've never heard her say this or act. I've never seen her pace before. She said, "Oh my God, Earl, you need to tell your little friends." I didn't tell her that they were little. I didn't tell her what they looked like. I was embarrassed. I didn't have any way to prove this had happened. She thought I was nuts. You need to tell your little friends that they need to leave us the F alone. I didn't sign up for this. Yeah. I don't know if kids are listening, so I'm going to watch my language. And at that point, I was, the blue glow, it became dark in our room. You couldn't see it anymore, but she certainly registered that blue glow. That doesn't happen. If you have to turn on a light switch or a flashlight or something to have light. So she knew something happened. But the next day, of course, she didn't remember any of it. It's like she remembered the blue glow in our room. She remembered waking up, but she didn't know why she was upset with me. Nothing happened the next night. And again, we didn't talk about it. It was as though we had come to some agreement with each other or whatever this intelligence was, that we weren't going to talk about it. Like it was a taboo subject. It did not come up, which is pretty unusual. I can't think of, it's like if you see if I saw a group of F-16s flying across the sky, you talk about that, but no, we didn't talk about it. So it was Friday night at this point, end of the week. And this time we both woke up at the same time. And there was the blue glow in our room again. Our friend, the blue glow. This time, Lisa and I, we both got up out of bed because there was also light coming from between our Venetian blinds. You see, the blinds that I have on the side here, next to, I've got them here next to me. Well, I was on the left side of the right side of the Venetian blinds. She was on the far left, and I pulled them up, and it looked like God himself was shining a spotlight on our backyard. This was not light that would diffuse at the edges. It was like a laser cannon or something. I mean, you could see every little twig, every little branch was leaving a shadow underneath itself that was so distinct. And it looked like somebody had cut them out of black construction paper and put the shadows down. That is how distinct it was. So we're looking at this anomaly. And I was not going to run outside. There was no sound of a helicopter. You try to explain to yourself in rational terms what you're seeing. And I'm a trained observer, but it didn't make any sense. Again, the room was silent. And they call that the Oz effect. And we experienced the Oz effect with all the bells and whistles. Perfect silence. Time seemed a little weird, slowed down somehow. And there's that blue glow, and there's this light, like God's own laser cannon. So at this point, we're looking at each other. We're looking out the window, and we look at each other, and I'm thinking in my head, well, neighbor's porch light? What could cause that? I mean, I was still trying to rationalize it, even after having my own weird experience. Well, we heard in our head at the same time, and this is the only time that we had any communication with this intelligence. We both heard in our heads at the same time, "Don't worry, it's just the neighbor's porch light." And Lisa and I, we heard it at the same time. It was in our skulls. It wasn't an audible voice. And we started cracking up. I mean, this is, and I love that, and I sort of, now I think of it, maybe it was meant to be a joke because we sure took it that way. It was completely absurd. No porch light is going to cause, this giant.
But you both heard the same statement.
We heard the same statement, same moment, and we both were
interesting
with laughter. And thank God, Lisa remembers that third night. She does not remember what happened to her on that second night. It makes her very uncomfortable for me even to talk about it. She remembers the blue glow all 3 nights. But thank goodness, thank God, she remembers that third night. So she knows I'm not full of baloney. She knows that this weird anomalous thing happened. I'm sure she wishes I didn't talk about it because she certainly didn't sign up for this stuff. She kind of blames me for this happening, and she's probably right. You know, I mean, I'm the guy with, the background with all this stuff. And my mom actually, she called it a ball lightning incident when she was a teenager, but I believe my mom had contact with something like a Foo Fighter, because ball lightning is very transient. It lasts like 3 to 5 seconds and it's over. And my mom talked about this story and she called it ball lightning, but this thing came in through the screened in porch where she and her sister slept. They lived in Iowa back in those days. And this thing came into their little screened in area where they would sleep, went over her sister, and then it hovered in front of my mom. And it just hung there. My mom said if it had eyes, it would have been eye to eye level, but she called it ball lightning. Pushed its way back through the screen. She said it sounded like a buzzing hive of hornets when it pushed through, and it retained its shape. If it was ball lightning, it would have electrified the screen like an electric fence. But this thing, it retained its shape. My mom got up and followed it to the neighbor's cornfield, and it waited for her like a puppy dog in the air. And she said when she got right under it, that she was looking up at it. It was maybe 30, 40 feet in the air, and it popped like a soap bubble. And she said it smelled like electricity, smelled like your electric train transformer, is what she said. So I think this thing, it runs in families. I don't think that this sort of thing happens randomly. I think that people are chosen. I think that its bloodlines are interesting to our visitors. Through all my casework with MUFON, we notice a lot of people with O positive or O negative blood, and the RH factor, that they tend to get the visits. And people, they haven't figured out where those bloodlines come from. They're strange. I'm a boring. I'm like, AB or something, But I think that maybe because of my mom's past, and I found the way that, and I'll say it confused me, Jimmy, when this happened, and especially because MUFON is very much so kind of almost oriented for those nuts and bolts cases,
Oh, for sure. No, there's nothing wrong with that, because back when MUFON formed, and you look at the ideas behind MUFON in the beginning, which was the investigation of this and trying to apply the science, which is what NICAP did, which is what Hynek did with SUFOs, trying to get science involved and look at, because we all wondered, and we've all gone through the transition, Earl. I used to think the same thing. I've been at this for 50 years of research into this subject. And I probably spent a good 40 years of that, 35, with the original UFO hypothesis. And my visions were like the Great Kazoo, or whatever his name was, and a little flying saucer, the Jetsons, and a little dude, flying across space and arriving here. And so you had to apply what we knew then to the investigations. And that's okay. We just have more knowledge today and more experience, and science has certainly come a long way. And we're able to look at this a bit differently. But I'll say this, and there's nothing wrong with flying saucers and
I love flying saucers. Look, I got they're all over my shelf behind me here.
They haven't gone away. They haven't gone away. But the other part of it is, and I'm being very serious when I say this. It sounds like comedy and a cavalier statement, but you have to look at it this way. Up until World War II, ET could come and go for millions of years with this planet undetected.
Yep.
Okay. After World War II, radar, satellites, and the ability to detect things, and sensor systems. So ET didn't have the free hall pass right? To just come and go. Now so they had to figure out a way of getting here undetected. Otherwise, we'd shoot at them, right?
Yeah,
and so
well, there's a shoot. It shoot them down. That's what the Air Force told all their pilots. They told them shoot them down.
And so we see that transition. I've seen it myself. I've seen nuts and bolts craft in the sky. Steve Murillo and I have had a few amazing sightings together, and I'm so thankful that we've gone through that. But a physical craft. And then I've seen this interdimensional phenomenon that I can't wrap my head around, where something appears and disappears in the sky. I can't figure that part out. Yeah.
That's how they roll. That's how they get. And that's how they leave.
And I'm okay with that. And so back to MUFON. So MUFON based everything on that type of investigation, and they should have. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I did.
Absolutely.
That's what I did.
Yeah.
I did not believe I was going to bring aliens into our house. I did not take it seriously. It was a lark, but it was sort of like, well, what my thing, I was hoping that it would be like Valiant Thor, that they would pick me up and take me on a little cruise and give me the answer to the universe and drop me off in time for dinner, and that's not what I got. I tell people,
right.
Be careful what you ask for. And well, so I was very confused. And I called up Jeff, our mutual friend, my brother in arms and dear friend. And
he's a cool guy.
Yes, he is. I love Jeff. So I wasn't going to tell him what happened over the phone. And first of all, I was embarrassed to tell him. I was embarrassed to tell I still get, embarrassed to talk about it, now because, there's still ridicule out there, and it's a little far-fetched to think that, you put your hand to investigating UFOs and here they come, but it happened. It happened. And it greatly changed everything, the way I think, the way that I feel, the way that I perceive everything. It was like before that incident and after is like, BC and AD. So I drove out to see Jeff. It was like a 4-hour drive.
And, he's up in Santa Barbara, right?
He's past that. He's Central California. I don't want to dox Jeff.
Neither do I. But he's out there on the coast somewhere, right?
Yeah. Happily on the coast and happily away from all the traffic jams here. But I drove for 4 hours to get there, and I didn't start the conversation with this. We were playing guitar and talking and yucking it up, and finally I got my nerve up, and he knew I had something to tell him, and so I told him what I just told you, and Jeff was kind of looking at me sideways, and I would have done the same thing. I would have done the same thing, kind of raising the eyebrow a little bit. Monty, his little bird, was chirping in the background. Oh, he lost Monty recently. Poor Jeff. That sweet little bird. Anyway, I told him this, and he said, Earl, I don't know what to tell you. I believe that this sort of thing happens, but I think it's very, very rare. Betty Barney Hill and Travis Walton maybe, but you probably should keep this to yourself. He said, there's a lot of ridicule for this out there, and I wouldn't go talking about this if I were you. And I listened to him. I didn't talk about it. I think the first time I talked publicly about it was with my friend's podcast that broadcasts in New Zealand. I figured, well, nobody knows me in New Zealand, But what I did though is when I would get new field investigators and I'd be training them, I'd sort of take them aside, and this was on the sly. All right, this isn't really protocol, but I would tell them. I would say, just be aware that if you poke at this phenomenon, it pokes back. It's interactive. And my people, I think they kind of take it seriously. What can I say? This is what happened.
Wait. That's too profound of a statement to just mention it and move on. So if you take the time to say that in training, that they poke back.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
It's the whole. I think that we have the misconception. It's due to growing up with Newtonian physics being, front and square, right? And Newtonian physics works pretty good with day-to-day life. Every action has an opposite and equal reaction, etc. You can't park your car where a car is already parked, etc. But this phenomena is not a Newtonian phenomenon. We're talking quantum physics here. If it disappears and reappears like, Schrodinger's cat, or, like a particle, I mean, that's how a particle will appear and disappear. Spooky action at a distance. They say that a particle in the Andromeda galaxy can be connected to a particle here, that they interact with each other. And the distance between them is insignificant to those two particles, that instantaneously they will affect each other. And it's a very, very strange phenomenon. And it has nothing to do with Newton's laws, I'll tell you that much. And we know this. The Tic Tac UFO is traveling Mach 18 and making 180-degree turns, and it was going, apparently they believe it came out of the water. I mean, we see the UFOs coming in and out, just ignoring surface tension. I mean, you land a plane on the water, there's a chance nobody's going to survive because you've got the surface tension. It's like landing on cement, belly down. So, but they do this all the time, and then they move at, just crazy speeds, and they don't cause sonic booms. That's impossible with physics as we know them. But I think they carry their own physics with them. And going back, to Lou Elizondo's book, he talks about this a little bit, how they can create we see with all UFOs, they seem to have this aura, and we think that they carry their physics with them, that perhaps they create this little bubble universe around themselves that allows them to ignore all of the elements of our universe that would cause them to crash, or would I mean, you do a 180-degree turn traveling at Mach 18, you're going to be paced on the side of the thing, but they do it all the time. I have one report, a guy that was out camping with his wife and brother-in-law in Catalina, commercial pilot, flew, the Catalina coastline all the time. And he saw what he described as a 300-foot self-illuminated golden sphere that came out of the water, did like a crosswise dance in the air. And he's yelling at his wife, yelling at his brother, bring the binoculars. Well, it resubmerged. Ignoring surface tension, this thing just slammed back down into the water. He thought they missed the show. They're standing there, he's trying to explain it to him, and this thing comes out again, and it does the same thing. But this time it splits into two 300-foot spheres. Now, he had the binoculars out there. Sadly, they did not bring the cell phone. But he did grab the binoculars, and he said that you could see the water draining off of this. It was a physical object. It wasn't plasma. It had a surface to it. And it turns it like mitosis. It reproduced itself. There's suddenly two of them, and then they shoot up through the atmosphere. You've got how many of the 5 observables there? It's like in and out of the water, into air, into space, transmedium flight. I don't think we can do that, but our visitors can. And it's like magic. The bringing up Arthur Clarke again, what did he say about magic? He said, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And I will say, if you poke at this phenomena, it does poke back. It's interactive. And you may think that you're looking at this phenomena and investigating it like a scientist looking at a germ on a microscope slide. But there is no distance between you and that microscope slide. As soon as you start observing this thing, it's looking back. It looks back at you just as truly as they looked right into my eyes and I looked into their eyes. When that happened, there was this connection, and you couldn't look away. And this attraction, and that's what we're dealing with. It's not a human thing.
I wanted to ask you before we run out of time.
Sure.
In the class that you teach at Otis, which is a great school, I've been there many times. Yeah, Otis is great, and art center is amazing too, as well, and so forth. We've got great art schools here in Southern California, but Otis is a pretty prestigious art school, and the students that are there, pretty diverse backgrounds.
Yes.
But very intelligent, very intelligent. And how are they looking at this phenomenon, and what have you learned from them in teaching this course?
I've learned that there is a great open-mindedness out there with our youth right now, and that really makes me happy. And I just, we just finished the fifth semester over at Otis that I've taught. I teach it with a PhD who she has her PhD in folklore. She's a folklorist, but she knows that the UFO phenomena is real, and that's the beauty of it. Heather is just a fabulous teacher. She does a vampire class. She does, she has a few different classes that she teaches there, but she wanted to do the UFO class, and she got a hold of MUFON, and they got a hold of me and sent me over to talk with her. And we absolutely gelled. We were sort of had the same ideas, both fans of Whitley Strieber, and we like the nuts and bolts stuff, but we know that this phenomenon is strange. It's not just nuts and bolts. It's a psychological thing. It's very, very weird.
But back to the kids. How do they look at the subject?
Sometimes they come in as skeptics, and sometimes they leave skeptics. I had one guy that came in and very intelligent and did beautiful art projects, and then he left. But he said, "I don't believe any of this is real, but thank you. It was a very thorough class, and I now know the history and everything about UFOs pretty much." And I'll have them do a case. I found that, and I tried this. It was just an experiment the first semester, but I think everybody knows at least somebody that has seen a UFO. So I would tell them, everybody knows somebody that's seen a UFO. And if you don't, just go and ask people on the quad, and you're going to find somebody. And I want you to do a MUFON Field Investigation. And I gave them all of our precepts, and I even gave them, paper, like a field investigator would use, and boy, I've gotten some results. One young woman, she was from mainland China, and her teacher in China was actually there and observed the Beijing airport UFO that was a cylindrical. Yeah, it was shooting lights down at the tarmac. They had to shut the airport down. And I don't know how many people have gotten first-person interviews with anybody that, they kind of tamped that down in China. But she got an interview.
3 times. That happened 3 times. 2 different airports.
Crazy,
but 3 times where they had to shut down the airport. Which, and what's interesting about that, and I don't want to tangent off of anything or segue too far. But what's interesting about that is China controls all news. They dictate what people talk about, what people learn, and everything is completely controlled. And they just want this image of this projected image of divine life, right? And then they turn around and put this in the media. Not once, not twice, 3 times about their airports being shut down by flying saucers. Wow. And it's just like, what is going on?
Well, it's a worldwide phenomenon. It's worldwide.
Well, does that because of the way that China deals with stuff? Do we have to give the story more cred because of how China controls everything? And if they're going to talk about this, then I guess it really did happen. I'm not saying that these things don't happen. I'm just saying it's the way China controls everything, and then they go and pop this into the press cycle. This is very interesting.
What are they doing right now? I mean, they have their own space station. They just went to the moon. I mean, they're probably are going
to beat us to Mars.
I think they're gonna. Mars. I think they will. I think they will. Well, Godspeed. As long as they don't plant a flag of the hours. But God, what if they did?
Really quick, can you share? I've never asked you this before, so I'm going to take the time to do it now. Can you share some of your favorite cases that you've investigated with us?
Oh goodness, yeah.
I mean,
I just shared one with you about the pilot. I like pilots reports. I like police sightings. I have a few of those. But I had, let's see, I just closed one the other day. It involved one of these guys, a black triangle. This guy was a vendor at Glamis Dunes, and he has like a little store there. And so anyway, he was going back to where they would sleep at night. End of the day, it was dark out. And he's on top of a dune, and there's a little valley below him. And there was a group of 12 motorcycles that were coming up the valley. Well, the guy felt uncomfortable. He was in his dune buggy, and he looks up, and there was a big black triangle that was heading right over him, perfectly silent. He said that it had a light on each corner, that it was sort of a reddish color, but they were very, very dim. He said it was like dimmer than a candle light. And it was just, so the triangle moved so that the guys coming up the valley on the motorcycles wouldn't see it. So it moved like almost directly over this guy's dune buggy. He said that when it was over him, he felt like a vibration in his bones and felt very uncomfortable. And I've heard this. Anybody that's been hovered over by one of these, it makes them feel a vibration. They feel uncomfortable in their skin. But there it is. And the motorcycles, they go up the valley and they're out of sight. And he said he watched this triangle turn around, no visible means of propulsion. He said that all it had was just like a slight buzz you could hear when it was shifting its formation in the sky. So it moves around, and it went into the valley. He said it slipped right down, and it was hovering maybe 7 feet above the ground between these two dunes, and it shot off. And he said it shot off so quickly that you could barely catch it. It went into the vanishing point and was gone. And that was, I closed that like a week ago. And I love the black triangle sightings. I mean, I have a police officer in Bakersfield that was like 35 feet away from one. He could see surface features on the craft. It was hovering over his neighbor's house. And they happened to live at the end of the flight path of Bakersfield Airport. And I liked his comment. He said, I wonder if the guy, it was just hanging there in stealth mode, no lights on. And I wonder if the guy went in for a, coffee break or had to take a pee or something. And he ran into the house, grabbed his cell phone. He was going to take video and photographs. And of course, the reason why he saw it was he had to take the dogs out to pee. That's when people see UFOs. They go out for a cigarette, or they go out to vape, or they go out to pee, or, on a rock somewhere, get out of their car, or they take their dogs outside. But anyway, this guy is he's a police officer. He was kind of a celebrated one. I looked him up. And why would somebody make something up like that, especially if they have everything to lose? Let's see some other great cases. I have a whole flight crew that were on a Hawaiian Airlines flight, and I have the photograph of the logbook with all the details and stuff. But they were going right past. Well, this guy originally, he saw what they called the racetrack UFO that was over the Channel Islands. And he put that case in, but then as an afterthought, he put in this old sighting he had back some years ago. But the one that had happened years ago is one that I really loved because there were 4 eyes on it. But they were just past the international date line. They were going from, I believe it was Tokyo to Hawaii. And it was still dark outside. And they're looking out the cockpit window, and they see these 3 silver discs. And he said that they had to have been right at the limit of space. You know, they can see stuff. They're high enough where they could see the shuttle's that cable experiment that kind of went awry. They could see that from that elevation. So he tells his other pilot, and it was 4 people on the crew. He's saying, "What the hell is that?" And he's saying, "What?" And he said, "That." Well, when he said that, these 3 silver discs, flying saucers, moved into a triangular holding pattern, and they just hung there over the horizon. And he said that it was still dark out. You could see all the stars, but there was just a little fingernail of light coming up where dawn was just beginning there. So it was lit up, what he was seeing, you know, from the sun. So it just sort of hung there long enough so that they could all get a good gander at this 3, 200-foot across chrome saucers, and they shot down together, perfectly silent, and they were gone. These guys, he said, flight crews come and go, but we've stayed in touch all these years because we saw something that we are told does not exist, and we know it exists. Now, this guy recently retired, and he's going public. And
right on.
I know.
I do that to flight crews all the time. I will. I'm very gregarious. I've got a loud mouth. I don't give a shit. And I'll go up if I see a pilot and if I see an air, I will go up and start talking. And I remember, it doesn't matter where I am. I'm somewhere in the United States, but they had changed. We were having an equipment change, right? Swapping out planes. And so while that's going on, our flight's delayed a little bit. The new flight crew steps up, and they're standing right next to me. So I turn around and I go, "So, hey, what's going on?" And I looked right at the oldest gentleman standing there. I said, "So, ever see any UFOs?" And he goes, "What? UFOs, aliens?" And he goes, "No." And he looks at his co-pilot. Co-pilot goes, "Nope, nope." I said, "What about you?" "Nope, nope." I said, "Come on. All the time you've been, nope, 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 nope. Not going to talk about it." I said, "Oh, come on, man." And I'm okay with that. And then I can't say specifics here. Because of the people involved. So I hate it when people do that, but there's a reason for it. Yeah. And Earl, I'll tell you off of the air and you'll go, "Okay, I get it." Right. You can't do that. But anyway, so I'm talking to a current pilot, and he tells me that he flies a Boeing 777. Okay. All right. And he's an international pilot. He told me this was last year. This is a year ago, about this time last year. He said this, and I quote, he said that they were flying over the Atlantic from the East Coast of the United States, and they're going over to Europe. And they're over the Atlantic in the day. And he said in front of them, he's the pilot. Okay. All right. He says, and there was a lot of people standing around this listening to this story and who this, there's so much to this. It's incredible. Anyway, he says he sees this black dot straight in front of the plane and they're flying straight towards it. And he looks and there's nothing on the radar. And he mentions it to his co-pilot. He said, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And he said, man, we are flying straight at it. And he said, just as we were getting close, we saw that it was a giant black rectangle like a domino on its side. And he says it's miles wide. And he said it's right in front of us. And he said we just flew right underneath it. And this thing flew over the top of us. And I look at him and he looks at me and we talked about it. He said, but we didn't call it in. It wasn't on our radar. We all saw it, and that was it. I said, what about the passengers? He said, nobody said anything. So I'm not sure if anybody was looking outside. He said, but it just happened so fast because it was still, and we flew under it. So unless you saw it for that 1 second, you wouldn't have been, you would have missed it. And that made sense.
It's not very aerodynamic, a big domino. That's like the Stevensville, Texas case a little bit. Flying.
He said it was still. He said it was still. Yeah, he said it was still. And now, when I tell you who this I mean, and the circle of people around this, you're gonna freak, like I did. So I was sitting there, and I go, "So, do you believe in UFOs?" I mean, he saw it, and he goes, well, that's the only time I've ever seen anything. And I don't, aliens, and no, not really. But he's got this story. Yeah, he doesn't think, flying saucers and little green men and ET and contact and disclose. No, he's not about any of that. It makes
people uncomfortable, Some people, and if he admits it too, he could find himself flying a desk. I mean, they'll ground you for that. Look at the JAL pilot in Alaska. He went public and he wound up losing his career. So they do have to be careful. They do.
For sure. Earl, great conversation tonight. Does MUFON SoCal have meetings? Do you guys get together?
Yes, we do. If you go to SoCal MUFON, SoCalMUFON.com, that's our local website. Our last speaker was Michael Schratt, who you're going to have in a few days. Michael is wonderful. You're going to love him. Yeah, he's
been to my house, Earl.
Cool. I haven't been there.
Yeah, that's special.
Very cool guy.
You haven't gotten to that level yet, but you're close though. You're close. You're real close. But where do you guys meet here in SoCal?
We meet in West Hills right now, but we also have OC MUFON. They meet in Costa Mesa. I just spoke to that group. It was a wonderful group. And San Diego, Will Wakely has a San Diego a Zoom meeting, but they get wonderful speakers, amazing speakers, and it's online so anybody can attend. Our meeting, it's in person, and we've had, Paul Hynek, Joel Hynek spoke recently, Bob Solis. I mean, we get the top guys, So come on out if you live in this area. And if anything that I've been speaking about sounds familiar to you out there, you can go to MUFON.com. If you've seen a UFO, there's a button that you click on and report a UFO. If you've had an incursion into your bedroom or you've met ETs, if you've been abducted, it says report a abduction or an entity. You can click that button, and somebody like myself and somebody in the experience or resource team will take your case and will take you very, very seriously, because we know this is an active and real phenomenon. I know it is. I've experienced it myself. So
thank you so much, Earl. Perfect show tonight, my man. I look forward to hanging out with you again soon. We will do that.
Yeah.
In the meanwhile,
let's talk guitars next time, dude. We didn't even touch the surface on that. Next time.
Yeah, we will. We will, but I'll see you soon. And just thank you so much. I've given you the title for your book, The Grey Files. I'll talk to you.
That was already the title of it. It's called The Grey Files. Honest to God, it is.
Earl
Mike
Grey,
and Ike, they think alike.
I'll talk to you, man. Behave.
Bye.
Earl Grey.
You too.
It's thank you, brother. SoCalMUFON.com. The links are below and over on our website, and of course throughout social media. And I want to mention to everybody really quick before we go, tomorrow night on the show, we have Lisa Smart, and we are going to be talking about the Final Words Project. So I will see everybody tomorrow night. Until then, all I've got is go back Lee Tappy. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Special thanks to Bill, John, Dex, Jessica, Dennis, and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music by Doug Aldrich. Intro, Space Boy. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2024 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Go back, Lee Tappy.